Hello out there, and welcome to our presentation on inclusive pathways, utilizing culturally responsive computing for social justice. I'm Ryan Lundell from Eastside Union High School District, with Jonathan Montoya from the Digital Learning Lab in University of California, Irvine, and Forrest Peterson from the Center of Integrated Facility Engineering, Stanford University. Today, we'd like to introduce a little bit more about ourselves and get into kind of the problem that we saw as researchers, practitioners in education, and then some solutions and a framework that we created to solve that problem. And we'll give you a little bit about our story, about how we created an inclusive pathway with culturally responsive computing and social justice as the foundation, and some of the results, challenges, and insights. So again, my name is Ryan Lundell. I'm an English and construction teacher at Piedmont Hills High School in San Jose, California. Just a little bit about our school district, extremely diverse. Has one of the biggest high school districts in the state of California. About 50% are on free and reduced lunch, 20% are English language learners. It's an extremely diverse student body, very reflective of the Bay Area, California.
So like Ryan said, my name's Jonathan Montoya. I used to be a high school teacher at Piedmont Hills, and I'm currently a graduate student researcher at the Digital Learning Lab at the University of California, Irvine.
And like Ryan introduced, my name is Forrest Peterson. I'm a postdoc at Stanford University working on workforce education.
So let's begin with the problem and set a little context. One of the problems that we found as educators and researchers of education is the Committee of 10 decided that it was a good idea to separate disciplines and teach them separate and create curriculum separately and in isolation. As we move into the 21st century, the technological age completely contradicts this type of separation. Everything is integrated, everything is connected, yet the structure of our schools has not caught up with the technological age. We're still creating curriculum in isolation. We're still creating curriculum into a silo, so to speak. And the problem with that is that isolation leads to a curriculum that is much more teacher-centered than student-centered, which then leads to an erosion of the teacher-student relationship, can lead to boredom, ennui, indifference. And I think anyone who's been involved in education or been a student has had that sense. So to go even further, when your teachers are creating curriculum in isolation, it really perpetuates and worsens the digital divide. A lot of times what we see is underrepresented students become passive observers of technology in their classrooms. They're not using tech as a tool in any meaningful way. And what happens is this perpetuates stereotypes that computing is not, and STEM careers are not culturally relevant. And what we see in this distance learning age, at least I've seen and many teachers have seen, is the pandemic is accelerating the digital divide and making it ever more worse. So some of the solutions that could help this problem is just taking reference from the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire, is the critical consciousness. I think as a foundation of our curriculum, we need to help our students and ourselves discover social and political injustice in our world and help them use any resources they can to take action against that injustice. We really feel that it's, as well as Paulo Freire, is that it's impossible to teach your students if you have no idea what is relevant to them or is meaningful to them. What's going to happen is you'll create a culture of oppression and you will not empower your students. So I think that's kind of the foundation piece of where we started. From there, we think job-embedded interdisciplinary collaboration is a central piece of the framework to solving this problem. Teacher-centered curriculum, which perpetuates the digital divide. And we need to take a more constructivist learning approach as opposed to a behaviorist approach. Teachers need to move from being the sage on the stage, so to speak, to the facilitators and the mentors and letting their students discover what is possible. We need to, secondly, involve as many stakeholders as we can, and that includes our students, who are literally the most important stakeholders in our curriculum. But not only that, who in our community can be a stakeholder? Local community colleges, universities, These are resources that go untapped who can help us have a voice in the curriculum. Another piece of this would be culturally responsive computing. We want students to use technology in meaningful ways that is relevant to them. We also want to create authentic assessments with principles founded in project-based learning with a lens of social justice. So a little bit about our story. With all that in mind, we decided in our school district that we're going to form a cohort of teachers, and we're going to try to create an interdisciplinary curriculum. And we were going to try to involve as many stakeholders in that curriculum as we could: students, parents, community. But one of the founding pieces, we needed to build a strong teacher-student partnership. So some of the things we did, and as you can see there on the image, we had a teacher from every core discipline: math, social science, English, the sciences, construction, and we all worked together. The founding piece was really building student relationships. We had open shops. We provided tutorials in all the different subjects. One of the big pieces of it was as well as community meals. Here we have some images of just a little bit of at our shop and in our classroom here, working with students. We had community meals every week. Holidays, we had big meals. Going on field trips. It's really all about trying to put the student at the center of the curriculum and building a partnership. And that leads us into, how do we involve stakeholders? And Forrest here is going to go ahead and tell you one of the big stakeholders in our curriculum was S4CA, and that led us down an amazing road, and Forrest will tell you more about S4CA.
So very quickly, S4CA is a community group of educators, industry, public policymakers, and labor unions. So we borrowed this existing organization, joined the organization, brought our own organizations to the table to form a community-based participatory research collaboration. So we now had a voice of all the stakeholders to guide us as we went forward in our project, to let us know things that we don't see that's over the horizon, behind the wall. They also opened up all the doors that we needed unlocked so that we could move through this network of organizations without having to ask for a lot of permission. We already had the permission because we had this organization behind us. S4CA, which stands for Santa Clara County Construction Careers Association, has over 24 organizations within that network, a dozen regular attendees to quarterly meetings, allows us to have a voice at each of those meetings to update the stakeholders on what we're doing and to ask for what we need in the next quarter. This turned out to be absolutely essential. So with S4CA as our community-based participatory research partners, we then brought in a curriculum from Stanford University, which is typically taught to the graduate students or used as professional development for executives internationally at the top construction companies in Europe, North America, Latin America, and Asia. So this is called Virtual Design and Construction, VDC for short. So this theory, which was designed at Stanford University over the past 40 years of research, takes the basic premise of project production management and what's called building information modeling, which essentially captures all the technologies that are used in construction: 3D modeling, field laser scanning. You then bring these technologies together with the engineering, the construction management, the architecture, to plan together as in a collaborative way and partnering. And that's called integrated concurrent engineering, using those project production management principles and using the building information technologies. You then use these to achieve your client objectives, which often might be something like build a highway, build a dam, build a hospital. And you have measurable metrics that measure your progress towards that objective so that you can track whether you are above your objective or below your objective, so you meet that objective. And this is a representation of what this network looks like. These are the actual participants pictured. You can see there's a large number of education associations and employers, public policymakers, who are all working together towards a common goal to create this education program, and everybody is pulling in the same direction, and everybody is trying to help, and everybody is informed on what our goals are and where we are at any point in time. Thank you.
So one of the reasons, as high school, secondary teachers, we loved the VDC was what gave us a perfect opportunity for interdisciplinary collaboration. We could bring in professional mentors. who could work with students from industry. We would be able to get students certifications, dual enrollment college credits. But one of the big things for me is we could finally create a curriculum that was purely project-based learning through a lens of social justice, which took into account culturally responsive computing, getting students to use technology in meaningful ways and develop those technology skills in meaningful ways in authentic contexts. Here's a little image here of just, we had many Zoom calls with industry mentors. You see students working with the mentors, and this is constant throughout the course and is a big part of it. We call this embedded formative feedback. Throughout them working on their projects, students are also working with their industry mentors to get the feedback and also working with the teachers. I won't show this due to time. I know we only have about 30 minutes, but this will be in the slides. This is a video where we called all the stakeholders, anyone who was involved in this process under the umbrella of Workforce VDC. And here's a video you can watch that gives you more details about how everyone was involved and how they were working with the students. So as we just want to give you, spend a little bit of time here talking about how we approached VDC, how did we get it going, and just kind of sharing our story. So again, I said it was very much create the space for teachers from different disciplines to work together. Let's get out of the old archaic model and get into something in the 21st century. Let's create a curriculum with this that allows that's student-centered with a foundation in social justice. That was a big piece we wanted. And we wanted them to develop tech skills that were meaningful to them. It begins, obviously, here's a picture of us at Stanford University at a 4-day virtual design construction boot camp where we started to learn the basics. We started to collaborate and create curriculum. This was followed up with consistent job-embedded interdisciplinary collaboration. We were giving common preps. This allowed for systematic reflection, allowed our curriculum to be more aligned. We had the space to be flexible and meet the needs of all our students and differentiate much more effectively than we could by ourselves. Of course, project-based learning was a big piece of it. We wanted our students to come up with real-world questions. We wanted very structured collaboration, where we are the facilitators, we are the mentors, and the students come to us and we don't necessarily have the answer to the problem, but we're helping them get there. Embedded assessment with industry mentors throughout the project. And finally, at the end, there was a public presentation at Stanford University in front of professors, in front of industry mentors, where they present their work and defend it. Again, just to reiterate, a big piece of this was culturally responsive computing. Give students the space to build those skills in a way that is culturally meaningful to them. Another big piece of this was we have students working together so much. We want them to have, big piece of this was social emotional learning. We start out with teaching Vygotsky's 4 stages of learning. A lot of talk about growth and fixed mindsets. We do a lot of activities to build teamwork. Every single lesson, something is planned into it to build team synergy. We start out by front loading any VDC concepts, a lot of social justice. We give students a chance to understand the concept of social environmental justice, how the construction industry is not as efficient as it could be, and how does VDC help solve some of those problems. This is some of the highlights of starting out the course. They get to go to, a lot of these students from East San Jose, they get to go to Stanford University and kind of become a student for a couple of days, learning the basics of virtual design software. They get to tour the Stanford campus. They get to design their own virtual home, eat in the cafeteria with the students. And it's something that all the students really remember. And it's quite a highlight of the year for them. Now I'm going to kind of just share for you briefly some of the projects, just to give you a sense that some of the technology these students were dealing with and how it was done through a lens of social justice. Our first project that we ever did, the students called it Safe Routes to School. They looked at 2 different neighborhoods, one in East San Jose and one in an affluent neighborhood of Los Gatos, which is about 20 minutes away. And they wanted to figure out, what are the safety, if I'm a student in East San Jose or a student in Los Gatos, how does it feel to walk to school? What are the qualitative differences? What are the quantitative differences? And you can just look at some of these questions and you see the social justice lens foundation coming through. Are these sidewalks working for the students as they were intended? Are they built to last in this community? Are they safe for the community, right? Are these sidewalks really equal? It's kind of what they're looking at. And as you can see, some of the things, these are pictures from the students, some of the problems they encountered in different neighborhoods, not a handicap safe sidewalk drop-offs, a lot of litter in certain neighborhoods. And at the end of it, what they discovered was these sidewalks were not equal. We need to do something about it. Being a student in East San Jose does not feel the same as being a student in Los Gatos. And so one of the things they wanted to do was organize a community cleanup. That's our students there with the mayor of San Jose, Sam Licardo, picking up trash in that area that they analyzed right by the high school. They created a Revit model of a sidewalk. They created a construction schedule, analyzed all the metrics. So using all this technology in a way that was meaningful to them. Then they go to Stanford and present it in their best suits, highlight of the year for many of those students. One of our students, Royce Wong, just a little bit about it. He said, this project showed that anyone can make a difference. You just have the motivation to do, need the motivation to do it. Yeah, and I would maybe extend that the opportunity which we gave these students, and they really took advantage of it. As we moved into year 2, we saw our program begin to grow. More schools were joining. Community college even joined. We saw our mentors increase. People began to hear what we were doing. Now we had more professional mentors and graduate students coming in. And in our second year, just to give you another flavor of the project, our VDC team created a tiny home community to help alleviate the problem of the Bay Area housing crisis that was going on in San Jose. Some of the things they did, they really pretended like they were city planners. They went out, found a bunch of different locations. They surveyed them. They met with nonprofits who work with the homeless so they could discover their needs. They designed a tiny home community using design software. They analyzed the metrics and then presented all their findings. Here's a little photo of the area they decided in East San Jose to survey and decide as their location. This is them here, a couple photos they took of the location as they were surveying it. This is our team at Pizza My Heart meeting with professionals from Sacred Heart Church who work with the homeless. This meeting was completely run by the students. They were here to discover the needs of the community so they could incorporate them into their design. And here's some of they created about 3 different designs, for different types of families who may be taking advantage of the tiny home community. One of the great things about this was they were able to have so many mentoring sessions. They even had a practice presentation that they were able to do and get feedback from mentors and industry professionals. And this is them here giving their practice presentation at Stanford University before the final. And here they are giving their final presentation about the tiny home community that they created to alleviate the housing crisis. So as you can see, very founded in social justice. They're leading the project. They're working with industry mentors. We are facilitators, and they're using technology in ways that are meaningful to them. This is a student, Emily, who worked on that project. Being able to conceptualize a tiny home community for the homeless was one of the best projects I've ever been involved with. Not only were we able to learn valuable skills, but I also learned about how the Bay Area housing crisis impacts my community. Emily actually went on to be accepted to Berkeley in civil engineering. And she told me that one of the reasons she wanted to get into civil engineering was her experience in virtual design and construction. It inspired her to do that. As we moved into the 3rd year of VDC, we see continued growth. More teams from different high schools, Yerba Buena, Independence, Piedmont Hills got more teams. More students want to be involved. More community colleges want to be involved. Our stakeholders are growing now. We have more mentors now, more instructors, more graduate students want to be involved and see what contribution they can make. In our 3rd year of VDC, our students did a project where they wanted to see how school facilities actually impact student learning. So they went out to a bunch of different schools in the Bay Area, analyzed their facilities. They put air quality data loggers in the classrooms to measure the accumulation of CO2 in the room. They gave teachers and students surveys to get a sense of impact that high amounts of CO2 could have on student learning and learning outcomes. And then they virtually designed their own classroom to improve the aesthetics and the air quality. They even got on the news, NBC Bay Area, and we put this clip in. In the interest of time, we won't show it, but the news was very interested in what they were doing. I suggest you go back and watch that. So in the end, the biggest results that we see are with VDC is a huge increase in the awareness of social justice. Students are developing tech skills that they would never be able to develop, and they're doing it in a very meaningful context. And another big thing is it's impacting their social mobility perceptions. We got students who see new career opportunities they've never seen before. students getting into universities they never thought they could get into before. Of course, the challenges is we're back to this archaic structure that we're still fighting against, the separation of disciplines. This is the biggest hurdle to a VDC style curriculum because it leads to a lack of teacher collaboration, which becomes unsustainable workload for both students and teachers, and you're going to get a loss of student and teacher participation. So job embedded interdisciplinary collaboration is going to create a curriculum that is much more flexible, much more culturally responsive because you have the students at the center. You're actually going to have authentic assessments where students can use their skills in a diverse setting in an authentic way. And you're going to, in the end, increase learning outcomes. The big piece here, though, is you've got to involve as many stakeholders as you possibly can. And you saw it kind of previously in the presentation, it really takes a village in this age. One teacher cannot do it alone in their silo and isolation, because now you can get formative feedback from industry mentors and professionals. You can align your curriculum with colleges and university. And the biggest thing here is let's break down the walls of the classroom. Let's increase collaboration across not only schools, but cultures. Why can't we collaborate with someone all the way across the world on a project? And that's what VDC offers. And the last thing I want to say to end here is a quote, one of my favorite quotes by William Butler Yeats. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. We believe that our students want to learn. They have an inherent curiosity that we need to spark. So the job is, can we really work together to finally build a curriculum that empowers our students rather than oppresses them? You know, the choice is really ours. Will we continue to go down this archaic path that was set in the 1890s? Or are we going to step into the 21st century and give our students a curriculum and a space to reach their potential? And the last thing I'll say is we're open to anyone joining the Workforce VDC family. We feel like more the merrier, the more stakeholders we can involve, the more resources, the more connections. So if you're interested, please contact me, Ryan Lundell, there's my email, and we can get you in the Workforce VDC family.